Okay, and welcome everyone to Determine's SolutionWise product demo webinar, Transformation 102 CLM and SIM. My name is Mike Mitchell and I am Content Manager here at Determine. I'm going to start by going over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. The screenshot shows an example of the Attendee Interface. You should see something like this on your computer. It's probably in the upper right-hand corner if it's minimized. All attendees are in listen-only mode, and you have joined the presentation using your computer speakers by default. If you do prefer to join over the phone, just select phone call in the audio pane, and the dial-in information will display. You can also submit questions and let us know if you're having any technical issues by putting your questions or issues in the question box in the pane. So a quick look at our agenda for about the next 45 minutes or so. I will give you a little bit of background about Determine, who we are, introduce our presenter, who will then go right into the demonstration, and work in some of the issues and the challenges that you submitted when you registered. And after that, we'll follow up with questions and answers. So a little bit about us. Determine is a pioneering source-to-pay and enterprise contract lifecycle management company. We were formed in 2015 through the combined expertise of three leading companies across source-to-pay, and that was IASTA in sourcing and supplier management, BPAC in procurement, and Selectica in contract management. Our goal is to simplify business complexities so customers can turn their pain points into insights and turn challenges into bottom line results. And that's something that we do for more than 250 global customers across industries, from financial services to pharmaceuticals, healthcare, retail, manufacturing, and many others. Now, the diagram that you see on the screen is the Determine Cloud platform. And that seamlessly integrates all of our end-to-end source-to-pay modular solutions. Unlike point solutions, suites, cobbled together platforms, our modular solutions are built around a robust, highly configurable business-centric technology. That makes it one of the most powerful platforms in the industry. And you'll see at the heart of the platform is the Determine core. And this provides a single source of data and metadata truth across an enterprise, along with business process management that links configurable workflows, that makes collaboration easier. And it's got a simple consumer-like user experience that is consistent from solution to solution, from device to device. Without having that integrated workflow and the shared data and the common platform, there is a lot of information that can and will go missing in an organization. Now, how that applies to suppliers and contracts is you need to ask yourself, are you seeing the whole picture? So contrast with what I just showed you with the way many companies operate, which is multiple systems managed by different departments that create data silos, and those silos cause gaps and increase inefficiency, inaccuracy, and risk. Now, that can happen because of internal structures, how the company is set up. It could also be because you're using different point solutions or, a cut and pasted together pseudo platform. That separation between suppliers and contracts can cause a lack of validation and certification before contracts are executed. And that makes it difficult or even impossible to manage third-party supplier risk and performance. Now, it's that integration which is critical to the alignment of contracts and supplier management, which is what you're going to see today. Just for your interest, we put together this slide, which shows what everyone on the call told us that they're using to currently manage contracts. And you can see vast majority using spreadsheets, Word, SharePoint, almost double the next one, which is homegrown. The biggest pain point that you shared related to linking suppliers and contracts turns out to be a dead heat between cumbersome onboarding and validation and a lack of awareness of expirations or renewals. And today's demonstration, we're going to show you how to solve for those. And with that, let me introduce Chris Colburn, sales engineer at Determine. He brings extensive background across technology platforms, and he puts a wide range of experience behind solving customer challenges and problems every day. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Mike. So let me go ahead and take the presenter role from you. We'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so as Mike said earlier, we love questions, so please add any questions you have to the GoToWebinar question tab. We will have a Q&A session at the end of this, and any questions we don't get to during that session, we'll respond via email afterwards. So at Determine, we offer a fully unified platform combining both supplier information, sourcing, contracting, and purchasing. And this platform uses a common database and a common code base, which lets all the functions be integrated to share a common look and feel. So if I come in and search POs, the way I apply new filters, the way I export that search, the way I look at different views is going to be exactly the same way as I would come in and search for suppliers. So the same export button, the same place to add additional filters, and the same place to look at different views. And that's gonna work as well for when you're building workflow and approval processes, when you're building reports in the system alerts. It's going to use that core functionality spread out across all of our modules. We also have built-in connectors with some of the most popular ERPs out there as well to make integration easier. And the common database means that all of our data is stored as metadata. And so once that information is captured, regardless of which module it's captured in, can be used throughout the entire platform. So if you capture some information on an RFP about a supplier, that information can be applied to the supplier profile. If you capture some information on a contract, that information is available during the purchasing phase as well. And so it's the ability to use any data from anywhere in the system with any other module that makes this really powerful tool. We also try to focus on collaboration instead of linear. And we'll talk about this more as we get into the demo. But essentially what that means is it lets us do parallel work streams. So I can at the same time be onboarding a supplier and reviewing their certifications while I'm negotiating a contract with that supplier. So we don't have to wait for one team to finish for the other can start. Both teams can be working in parallel. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about our UI, and then we'll jump into the actual presentation. We build our user interface based on the Google material design. And essentially what that means is we try to build it with the idea that less is more. So put the information you really need in front of you, but don't clutter you with too much info. So we have an easy to use navigation pane here on the left, shortcuts and to-dos in the middle, a global search that will let you search anything on the right, including text in your contracts. And then my favorite piece is actually this last viewed. And so this is exactly what it says, the last things you were working on. I just find it really convenient. If someone asks you information about a supplier and you leave the contract you're working on, you just come back to the home page and click the last contract you worked on. If you're gone for a long weekend and you don't remember what you were working on, you can see easily what were the last few things you looked at. So this is probably my favorite piece of functionality. The other thing I really like here is we have what's called a responsive design. So if I were to log in on my cell phone, for example, and let's make the screen a little smaller, the system's going to automatically resize to fit your screen. So if I scroll to the bottom, what we'll see now is a search and your last few documents have been moved to the bottom of the screen, where if you're on a computer or a tablet, it'll be here on the right. So whatever kind of device you're using, you can log into the system and use it seamlessly. All right, so let's get started with the presentation. So I'm logged in as a user, Michael, and I met a new supplier at a trade show that I wanted to do business with and get added to the system. So first, I'm just going to come into my supplier page and see if I can't find that supplier. So this supplier's name was Computers IT. We'll go ahead and search for it. And we see that there's no suppliers called Computers IT. So what I can do here is I have two options. I can create that supplier and put in all the information about the supplier myself, but I really don't want to do that. I want to put that onus back on the supplier. So I have this invite supplier button here, and all I need to do is put in some simple information about that supplier and then put the onus on them to provide the rest of the information. So we need their supplier name and then some information about a contact. His name is Chris IT, and then just the email address for that user. Okay, so I just need a few things of information. We'll go ahead and select invite, and the system will generate and send an email to the supplier. So let me go ahead and pull up that email so we can take a look at what it looks like. So here's the email we just got. Dear Computers IT member, some information about our company, some information about what the portal does, and then a link to log in. This email is completely configurable by your organization, and the same place you would configure a supplier invite email, you'll also be able to set up your emails for suppliers to renew certifications, emails to suppliers about contract negotiations, all in the same place. So I'll click this link here, and it will prompt us to log in and create a profile. So the first thing we have is some terms and conditions about the portal. Again, these are customizable to your company's needs. The supplier can reject them, but obviously if they want to do business with us, we need to accept these conditions. Next, simply create a password so we can log back into the system. And now we're brought to the page where we can input information about ourselves. So go ahead and edit this page. Now, what you require and the type of information you want from your supplier is defined by you. Most of the time, your suppliers, though, are going to give you as much information as possible so you know more about them and are willing to do more business with them. So I'm going to select this information, commodity or product and service, because I'm an information company. We'll go ahead and select our legal form. Normally, you would probably make this EIN required, but for demo purposes, we'll leave it blank. And I'm going to scroll down here and add my address. Forest, zip code, and finally, a state. From here, I'll simply save that information. And now I can submit my registration to move forward. What I want to point out real quick, though, is you can see that we have 2 certifications already being requested from the supplier, an NDA and a W8 or W9. But I want to point out here that I added this product service of information, and the system will dynamically add new certifications based on what the supplier filled out in their profile. So when I hit submit registration here, we'll see a new certification has been applied. So because it saw that I was an IT company, it supplied this new certification of IT assessments. Now, how many certifications and what certifications you have are again defined by you as a company. And if we take a look here at a screenshot I have from another system, we see that you can add as many certifications as you want. So here we're asking for insurance as well, financial assessments, service areas, diversity. There's no limit to how many certifications you need, as well as customizing it. So a construction supplier, you ask construction-based certifications, insurance. An IT supplier, you would ask IT-based certifications. Okay, so first we have our NDA. Now I could send this to eSign, but we're actually going to take a look at that a little later. So here I have the template of the NDA to sign. So I'll go ahead and download that, and then I would print that out, sign it, and simply come here and upload it back into the system. Once that's uploaded, I would move forward. Here we're asking them to upload a W-9. We have a template for it, but I already have my W-9, so I'll go ahead and insert it here. And then we'll also add an expiration date of January 1. We'll go ahead and submit that and move forward. Now, before I move forward and fill out this IT security assessment, I want to log into the system as a user so we can see the progress the supplier is making. So now I'm logged in as Cheryl. She's not the person that invited this supplier, but she's a certification manager, and mostly what she does is manages and approves certifications by suppliers. So I'll just refresh her screen real quick. And you see that we have a new to-dos, and we have 2 certifications now to review. The cool thing about this is I can start reviewing the certifications on the supplier before they've even finished their profile. So as they submit new certifications, I can come in and begin to process them and work on the supplier. So again, it's that idea that we don't have to wait for someone to completely finish something before your team can start. As soon as they finish just a piece of that task, we can come in and review it and approve it. So now I'm back on the supplier page. And these first 2 certifications we looked at were document uploads, but we also have the ability to build questionnaires and make those part of the certification process. What's really cool or interesting about this is that we can then apply these questions to the supplier profile. And if we ask the exact same question in an RFP, if the supplier's already filled out this questionnaire, it'll auto-populate on the RFP, and vice versa. If they fill out this information on the RFP, we can have it auto-populate the questionnaires for us. So making it easier for both the suppliers and for us. I've got this questionnaire set up where I can skip through it. So we'll go ahead and submit it as a supplier, and then submit for validation to let the company know that we've finished. So now I'm going to hop back in as Cheryl. We'll refresh Cheryl's screen again, and we'll see now that she has the 3 certifications that the supplier filled out. From here, I can click on the certification and come in to review this specific certification. Or if I want to, I can go to the supplier profile. And here we actually have a full page dedicated to the supplier certifications.
Hey, Chris, sorry to interrupt. We have a question from Steve who wants to know, how does the certification manager or anyone in the workflow know he or she has tasks to perform to keep the flow moving?
Yeah, that's a great question. So not only will you get these to-dos that will pop up on your screen as the certifications are completed, but you also will get email notifications letting you know that there's new certifications for you to review. Okay, so we talked about this last view. As you saw, I've come home. I could click here to look at the individual certifications, but since I'm just going to use this last view and get back on the supplier profile. Another thing I really like about the system is the ability to add ad hoc certifications. So if we have a certification that doesn't always apply to a supplier or a type of supplier, and maybe only applies in certain times, you can manually add certifications, and then this will prompt the supplier to go back in and upload those. Another really important thing here to think about is I have this set up where Cheryl can approve all these certifications, but in reality, she may be able to approve the NDA and W-9, but doesn't know enough about IT to approve this IT security assessment. We can actually set it up where maybe Michael from IT gets assigned all the IT security assessments to review. So you can define which users are responsible for reviewing and approving which certifications. So let's go ahead and take a look at these certifications. I have the ability to view an audit trail. I can accept this certification, reject it, or more likely would send it back as a needs update. And so you would do this if, let's say the supplier uploaded one that wasn't signed, or they uploaded last year's W-9 or anything like that. And then here I can actually download the file that the supplier actually loaded. But we'll just go ahead and accept this. And now we can see the status has moved from processed to certified. We can see a green light here letting us know that this certification has been approved. We'll take a look at the W-9. We'll go ahead and accept this one as well. And then lastly, we'll take a look at the IT security assessment. If I scroll down, we can see all the questions. Again, I didn't fill them out, but you can make these required, and you most likely would if you were going to assign a questionnaire like this. So now that I've accepted all these certifications, what you'll notice is at the bottom now we have a new piece of information that's been applied, and this is the approver, or it's assigned the approver that needs to approve this supplier. The system does this automatically, and it's based off the workflow you build. And defining who approves a supplier can be done based off of any piece of metadata in the system. So we can do it based off of the type of supplier, the type of department the supplier is going to work with. Any piece of data about that supplier, about the users that invited the supplier, can define who needs to approve this supplier. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in as Joanna, and we'll go ahead and approve this supplier. So here I'm logged in as Joanna, and I'm going to refresh my screen. And we'll see under the to-dos that Joanna now has a question or a to-do of one supplier pending her approval. She also will get an email, but I really like this. It's nice and easy in the system, and it links you directly to what you need to work on. So now that she's pulled up the supplier profile, she can review their basic information, review their certifications, and then decide, does she need to reject or send this back for more information, or can she approve it, or will she approve it? And for this one, we'll go ahead and approve it. We'll talk about this in more detail when we get to the contract stage, but you can work with these suppliers before they're approved. So you can invite an unapproved supplier to an RFP, and you can start negotiating a contract with an unapproved supplier. It's only when you get to actually approving those contracts or purchasing against the suppliers that they need to be approved. So this approval step lets us do the final pieces of business with the supplier, but it doesn't stop us from starting all the work with the supplier. So Joanna will go ahead and approve the supplier and move the supplier into the approved status. From here, we're going to switch gears a little bit now and talk about contracting. So we just walked through inviting a supplier, having that supplier on board, checking their certifications, and then approving them. Now we're going to move into the contract creation or contract request part of the demonstration. The first thing you'll notice here, I've logged in as my user Ray, and Ray has a lot less information or a lot less to-dos and shortcuts on his screen than our user Joanna here. And that's because Ray is a basic user that comes in every now and then to request contracts, and that's about it. So we've limited what Ray can do in the system based on his needs. So Ray wants to do business with one of our suppliers called Gadgets and Widgets. So I can come to the contract repository and use just this general search to search gadgets. And it will pull up any contracts we have that have the word gadgets in them. Well, we can see that we have one contract with our supplier, Gadgets and Widgets, an NDA, but I know that I need an MSA with this supplier as well. So I'm going to request that my contracting team starts working on getting that MSA with Gadgets and Widgets. So Ray has a nice little button here on his homepage that just says request new contracts, and he can click on that to get started. So again, Ray's not creating a contract right now. He's requesting that one be built. So I can simply come in and search for the type of contract I want to build. You'll notice this with all our searches, that as soon as you start typing in information, the search will automatically pull up the options that are available to you. So here I'll select my master service agreement. The system's automatically going to name this contract for us, and this is based off some criteria and can be configurable towards your needs. And then here we have the counterparty name or the supplier we want to do this contract with. Again, I can just start typing in gadgets and widgets and it will find the correct supplier. I'm also going to add a primary contact. We see that they already have a legal contact set up in the system. I know this is who they need to work with, so I'll assign that contact as well. From here, just simply hit add and next, and it will take us to the next page where there's some more detailed information we can fill out. The way we have this set up is that there's no more information Ray has to fill out about this contract. He can add additional information if he wants to, but it's not required. We put most of that onus on the contract manager, but that's just the way we have this demo set up. If you want your contract requesters to put in more information, we can certainly configure the system to work that way. So I'm just going to hit save and next on this page. And we come to this last attachments page. So this is where Ray can add anything else about the contract he needs. So whether that's caddy drawings, pricing detail, if we know we're going to be using vendor paper and we have the starting point from the vendor paper, any kind of attachment he can add here. But since this is an MSA, we don't need to do that. We'll simply just hit submit as request. And from here, Ray is done. Now we have a couple of things going on up here. So it says that status updates will be sent to Ray. So even though Ray is no longer part of the contract negotiation, he will be updated as it moves through its process. And we can see that an alert was sent to Chuck Contracts, who's our contract manager. So this is just letting us know that this contract request was automatically assigned to Chuck. And again, how Chuck gets assigned this contract is based off of the workflow, which can be configured by information about the supplier you're doing the contract with, information about their contract, information about the department that Ray's in. Any piece of data in the system can define who is responsible for these contract requests. Okay? So now what we'll do is we'll switch gears. We were logged in as Ray, and now I'm going to log in as Chuck. Like we had before, I'm just going to refresh the screen. Chuck received an email, but he also now has a new to-do, which says one contract request to process. And here we can see this contract request. So this is all the information that Ray has filled out. I can see what type of contract he wants. I can see with which supplier he wants to create that contract. So let's say I'm interested, I don't remember working with the supplier. I can simply click on that supplier name. I can see some basic information about the supplier. I can hit open and go to the supplier's profile. But what I really like is this view details button, which brings up the supplier profile in a pop-up for me. So I'm still on Ray's request in the background, but now I can review the supplier profile without having to leave the contract request that I'm on. From the supplier profile, I can review information about the supplier, but I also have a contracts dashboard. I'm sorry, that was a contract dashboard where I can see the current contracts we already have with the supplier. So I can see, okay, we do have an NDA that's active, but we do need an MSA to continue to do work with the supplier. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and approve this contract. So I simply just close out of this window. I'm still on my contract request, and I just hit the big green button to create the contract. Now what we've done here is we've moved it from a contract request to an actual contract. And the way the system's set up is we have two pieces of this contract. We have what I like to call the contract wrapper, which is the information about the contract. We're going to fill out more of that here. And then what we'll do is create the actual document that's going to be signed. So this wrapper kind of sits around the actual document that's going to be signed. So as I scroll down here, there's some information I need to fill out, governing state law. We'll do Delaware. Effective date. I'm going to set it as today. Most likely we would delay it until signing or delay it till right before signing, but I'll set it for today. And then we can set the different renewal types. But we'll leave this one as a non-extendable contract. Here I can add other people that I want to review this contract with. This is not who's going to approve the contract. This is who I want to work with to build and negotiate the contract. The approval workflows are defined by the system, but this gives me the ability to work with whoever in the company I need to get the contract to the point that it can go through approval. So we're going to add Chris as our legal counsel, and then we'll go ahead and add a dollar amount. So I'm going to add $550,000 as our dollar amount, and then we'll go ahead and save this information. Simply click the next button to move to the next page. And now you can see we went from a new contract to initiating it to now the document creation. So this is where we're going to actually create the document that will be signed, negotiated, and worked on. Now I have the ability to upload other pieces, addendums, exhibits, whatever I may need to. But right now we're just going to upload the document, contract document itself. And I have a couple of options. So I can upload a file. So if I have a vendor paper or I don't have a template in the system, I've got a contract starting point in Word that I already like, I can simply just pop that in here and start from there. Import from request. If we remember, Ray had the option to add attachments. And if we wanted to import one of those attachments as the contract document, I could do that as well. And then lastly, I have templates themselves that I can use that are inside the system. So I'm going to search for my MSA templates, and I'm going to use this template I have, MSA02. So we'll save that. And what the system's doing now is it's generating this document, but it's also pulling information that we've already filled out on our contract wrapper and putting it in the document for us. So let's go ahead and take a look at this contract document. So I'm going to check it out and then download the actual documents. So what we can see here is that the system automatically added the 55,000. We can see it applied the state of Delaware. Any kind of metadata that you collect during that contract creation phase or that wrapper, we can automatically insert here into the document. And so that just is one less step you have to do when you come in here to edit it. So let's make a couple changes to this, and then we'll import it back in the system. What I really like is that if your legal team is used to using Word, they can continue to use Word throughout the whole system. And all they need to do is load that into the determined platform, and it will handle the rest from version control to workflow approval to e-sign to then post-contract management. So you can do it within the system. You also can do it within Word and then simply upload it into the system. So let's make a couple of changes here and move forward. So I'm going to say that all disputes must be sent by mail to make it more difficult. And then I'm also going to remove this expense clause. So just a couple changes. I'm going to go ahead and save it, close out of Word, and then just simply hit the upload button, and we'll import that document back into the system. And then we'll check it in. So the first thing I want to point out here is version control. We have the original document that was created by Chuck. It was generated by the system, and it was generated using our template MSA02. We now have the second version, which is the latest version. It was uploaded by Chuck, and here's the file name. So you can easily see all the different versions that are created. What I really like is we also can come in here and compare. And so regardless of whether or not you're using Microsoft Redline or not, the system is storing in the database every version of this contract and then comparing it for you. So we have this side-by-side view, and I can see right away that on the first version there were expenses, and now there's no longer that clause. If I click this little information, it'll tell me that it was removed by Chuck, and it's 0% similar to the last clause that was in there, or the last version of it. If I come down here to this amendment clause, it'll tell me that it was moved. and that it is similarly 100% the same. So the only thing that changed about this was it moved. And if I look at this last clause that we modified, it's going to say it was updated by Chuck, and it's still 85% the same, and it easily points out which pieces were added. What I like even more is this unified mode, where it kind of lets you read the contract as it is now, but letting you know what changes have been made throughout. So I can see that this expense clause is no longer there, but I can still read the contract kind of how it sits today. So I think it's a very easy to use tool that lets you see all the changes that have been made in your contract. All right, so now that we've reviewed the changes we've made, I'm going to finalize this, and we'll move back to our main contract workflow. So next, I have the ability to send to collaborate. This send to collaborate is not sending it to our approval workflow. What I'm doing is putting it in this collaboration phase where we can work with our internal teams, and the counterparties to get this contract where it's ready to be signed. Okay, so we'll simply hit send to collaborate. And now I have the option to send it to multiple people. So I can send it to the legal team, that was Chris that we added earlier. I can send it to the counterparty. I can send it to the business lead, and we can pass it around back and forth until we get it to where we want. So let's say I send it to legal. We can see a notification has been sent to Chris. Chris will then have access to log in here and do essentially what you just saw me do, which was download the contract, modify it, and import it back. When Chris finishes, he'll have the same options that we see here right now. So he could send it forward to the counterparty, or you could send it back to collaboration mode. What I really like about this is that Chuck, the contract manager, always has control of this. So even though he sent it to Chris at any point in time, he can come grab it back. So this phase is obviously a phase you would stay in for a while as you're passing this contract back and forth between all the users. So let's imagine we've done that. I sent it to Chris, I sent it to the counterparty, we sent it back and forth. Instead of the 2 versions, we now have 15 versions of this document, right? But we've got it to the point where we're ready to sign it. This is where the approval workflows will come in, and that's going to be, again, defined by your company who needs to approve it. So I'll basically say, okay, I'm done collaborating, we're ready to sign it, and we'll move it to the next phase. I want to talk for a minute about this piece up here. So the first thing I have here, it says partner is in okay state, ready to proceed. So this is where we talked about that nonlinear approvals earlier. I could do all the contract creation and negotiating before that supplier was okay or approved. And so what this is telling me is it's now checking to see that the supplier is approved before it will let us approve and then sign the contract. So all the work we've done up till now can be done before Joanna's team has finished approving that supplier. And so this is really powerful, because if you award a supplier an RFP, at the same time, your supplier management and onboarding team can be working with that supplier to onboard, your contract management team can also be negotiating and building that contract with them. And only here at the very end, once we've got that contract ready to be signed, will the system stop us and say, okay, now you have to wait for the other team to finish. So it really lets you work in those parallel work streams. Next, what we'll see is it says this contract has been sent to Amy, approver, as the approver. And so this, again, the system is set up to look at whether it's the dollar value on the contract, whether it's the type of supplier, whether it's the department, whatever it may be, and is saying, okay, we have it set up that Amy needs to approve this supplier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now log in as Amy. So like before, we can see that Amy has a contracts pending your approval here on her home screen. So she knows these are the things that have been assigned to me that I need to work on. Another thing I want to point out quickly is not only does Amy have to-dos, but she has in progress. She can see, all right, what contracts are expiring in the next 30, 60, 90 days, right here on her dashboard, so it's always there in the forefront of her mind. But we'll go ahead and click on this contracts pending approval. and this is the contract we've been working on. So I can come into the attachments and I can review the contract documents. I can look at the basics of this contract. And once I've reviewed that, I can come here to the approval tab and approve it. On this contract, we have the approval set up a little differently. So Amy is set up where she is the approver. And then Matt, Amy's boss, is set up to get a notification every time Amy approves a contract. So Matt doesn't want to have to come in here and approve it himself, but he does want to know every time that a new contract has been approved. So the system will automatically email him and let him know that a new contract has been approved by Amy. Another thing that's really cool is Amy can add ad hoc approvers as needed. So if, let's say, this contract's a little different, or there's a new clause or something like that, she can actually say, all right, you know what? I need Chris to approve this as well, and add Chris as an approver. And so what this does is it adds this to that audit trail. So instead of Amy, sticking her head in my office and saying, hey, Chris, you remember that contract I talked about with you last week? I'm going to go ahead and approve it. What do you think? And instead of me just giving her a thumbs up, now it'll actually make me approve it in the system. And so there'll be an audit trail that I signed off on it as well. But since this is a normal MSA, we're not going to do that. And I'm going to just simply approve it as Amy and move this into the approved status. So we can see that the contract went from the approval status, and now it's in this signatures needed status. I'm going to go log in back as Chuck, our contract manager, and we'll just refresh the screen. And we can see now that it's in this ready to sign state. So from here, we have two options. I can manually sign it, which means I download the contract, mail it to the counterparty, have him then sign it, mail it back, sign it and upload it, or we can do the electronic signatures. So the electronic signatures, we're going to use the integration with Docusign to have the contract be sent via email and signed online. So we've already added the supplier contact that needs to sign this, and Chuck as the signer. Now, who's set up to sign the contracts by the supplier or internally at your company can be defined in the system. Most likely the contract manager wouldn't be the signee, but we just set this up so it's easy to see as part of the demo. Because I'm using a template, this template's already been built to work with Docusign, and I can simply click send for signature. But let's say we were using vendor paper, or we weren't using a template, we had just uploaded this document from Word. I can actually open up and go directly into Docusign. What I really like about this is the system's actually taking me to Docusign, but I'm not leaving the determined cloud. It's not a pop-up. It's actually put Docusign in our system. So as I scroll down here, I can see we already have the signatures and the names and dates set to be signed. But let's say I want to have our supplier initial this dollar amount as well. I can simply just drop that initial here, and now that will be part of the things he needs to do when he signs a contract. So once I've made any changes via Docusign I can simply hit send, and now the system via Docusign will send an email to the supplier letting them know the contract's ready to be signed. So let's take a look at how that, or what that looks like. Okay, and we'll see the email has already come through. It lets me know that it's from Chuck via Docusign, so I know who this is coming from and why. And I can simply click review document, and this will take me into the Docusign to sign it. So I simply click continue, start. If you remember, we added this initials, so I'll initial that, and then it will take me to the sign. Once I've signed it, I can review it again if I need to, and then simply click finish.
Chris, we had a question come in from
Yes.
Steve. Does Determine use the Docusign envelopes we have, or is there something that enables envelopes as part of the fee with Determine to support the integration for e-signature?
Yes, so we are using the Docusign envelopes.
So Steve, raise your hand if that's not a complete answer. Thank you.
So as soon as that contract is signed, we'll get another email to Chuck that now it's his turn to sign it. He can simply click continue, start, sign the contract, finish, and now the contract has been signed. So I'm going to log in back as Chuck. We'll go home. It usually takes 30 seconds to a minute, but it's actually very quick that once that contract's been signed, everything's imported back into the system. So let's take a look. Again, we'll use this last viewed to go to the contract we've been working on. And we can see now it's been completed, it's been signed. Not only do we have the file to sign, the signed file, but we also are importing their certificate ID from Docusign, which is a very important document that shows us who signed it, the email address that was sent, the email address of the person who signed it, the IP address of the signer. As you can see in this example, the IP address is the same because I signed both of them. The timestamps. So this is the actual Docusign certificate that goes along with all the contracts that's here into the system. So you don't need to log directly into Docusign to see any of that. We're capturing it all here in the system. Once that's finished, all Chuck has to do now is activate this contract to make it an active contract. And the contract is set up and ready to go. The other cool thing we can do is now we can create this as a purchase contract to then purchase against in our system. If I come home, you can see that I have some spend tracking already based on some purchasing contracts we've already built. So that's the end of the demonstration. We walk through inviting a supplier, onboarding them, reviewing their certifications and approving them, and then requesting a contract, authoring that contract, signing that contract, and then finally approving that contract. So let's take a look at some of the questions we have. And from Steve, I see one question right here. It says, does the system have a calendar to make pending work coming up in 30, 60, 90 days visual? So we don't have a calendar like that. We do have these in progress 20, 60, 90. The other thing we have is when you come in here, this view will actually give you the expiring within 30 days contracts. So we do have the different search criteria to see them. What we also do a lot is we build dashboards to be able to see expiring contracts, as well as reports. And with our reports, what we can actually do is have those reports sent out automatically. And so a lot of customers want a report that says, let me know all the contracts that are expiring this month and next month. And they want that in their inbox on the 1st of every month. And the system will automatically generate that report and send it to them as well. Mike, do you see any other questions?
I do. Further to the question about Docusign envelopes, Steve wanted to clarify, are the included envelopes ours or additional envelopes through the license with Determine? And that may be an email answer. You can let me know.
Yeah, so I'll have to email back on that one. I know we integrate with your Docusign account, so it's not Determine Docusign. You would have to purchase Docusign, and then we integrate with that account. But I'll get some more information on that and send you an email afterwards.
Okay, great. So we did get a bunch of questions submitted at registration. And if anyone has additional questions, please put those in the question pane. But Amy and Alicia had both had similar questions about how to validate POs with contracts so that you can tell what you're buying is in the contract and it's at the agreed upon amount.
So I think that one may be answered a little better via email. We do have spend trackers. We can purchase and put POs against the contracts. But my expertise is actually in the supplier management and contract lifecycle. So I need to talk to one of my colleagues that's an expert in the purchasing piece of the platform to get a more detailed answer.
Great. We also got a question. Can you show more about the contract expirations that you showed on the dashboard there and what that looks like?
Yeah, so this is basically letting you know that you have contracts expiring within a certain amount of time, right? And I can actually come in as well to my contract repository and look at my expiring soon contracts. And so if I just, let's look at approved contracts that are expiring. Something wrong in there. Give me 1 second. Just filter by status. Or active, I'm sorry. That's what I meant to put in there. So these are all the contracts that are going to be expiring soon. And then I can simply work down the list of these contracts. We also have a report builder. And so most of our customers have us build reports specific to them to rank which contracts are the most important for them to work on, right? Obviously, any contract that's going to be an automatic renewal is something you want to keep an eye on. Another thing to realize is that we have contract owners, and so these will be those contract managers that negotiate the contracts. They also will start to receive notifications as the contracts they're responsible for get close to expiration. And how often and when those notifications for individual contracts are sent can be defined by you guys in the alert system.
Great. We also had a question about using MS Word, since a lot of legal, that is their go-to preference. Can you talk about how our contract management tool allows a document to be uploaded from MS Word and then managed? Yeah,
so the system is built to be really flexible, where you can use Word, Google Docs, any kind of word processing tool you want. It doesn't matter. The system will generate those documents through the templates, but you can also simply, if you have your templates in Word, your team wants to email the contract back and forth via Word, you can do all that and just upload it in the system the same way you saw me upload the edits I made. And from the system's point of view, it doesn't really care where you make the edits, whether it's in Word or in the system. It's going to treat them all the same. So we have a lot of customers that do it that way. The legal department is happy with the way they manage and negotiate the contracts. It's really more about how do we handle the approvals, the Docusign integration, and the post-contract management. And so what we do is let the legal teams do everything they want to in Word, and then we handle the rest of the process in the tool.
And I think last question, since we're getting close to the top of the hour, do others besides the contract manager get alerts of upcoming terminating contracts? And what is the frequency of the alerts and how are they turned off?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So you can set up user groups or user roles if you for people that aren't the contract manager to also get the alerts, right? So maybe you want alerts for every purchasing agreement in your department. How often those are sent, that's all defined by you in the system. And you can set those up to be email notifications, to be acknowledgement notifications that show up on your home screen, to have them be both. And so it really just depends on how you want to set up the system. If you don't want to get the alerts, we just simply take you off that list of people who would be getting alerted.
Great. And a real final question, just because it's a good one. How are contracts migrated from one contract manager to another? For instance, if someone leaves the organization or is out on vacation.
So the vacation, we have it out in office where you basically, it's actually pretty cool. You set it up and say, all right, I'm going to be out of office and I want Mike to get all my requests until I'm back. And then the system, just any approval that would be assigned to Mike or just assigned to me automatically gets assigned to Mike. So that's super easy. For when contract managers leave, we have a bulk updates. And so all you would do is you just pull all the contracts up by that manager and simply reassign them to either one manager or break them up and assign them to the different managers depending on your needs. So both very easy to handle in the system.
That's great. And I think that does take us to the top of the hour. I really want to thank everyone for sticking with us and for actually registering for the demo webinar. I hope you found it as useful and as insightful as possible. Thank you again for your questions and your submissions. At the end of the webinar, there will be a short 3-question survey that pops up. We please ask you to complete that. While we're hosting these webinars, the topics are driven by you. So we want to know what's interesting to you. If you have ideas for additional topics, please let us know. We're very responsive. If you have any questions, you please submit them to the address that you see on the screen, and we will respond to all questions. If you'd like to dive deeper into this topic, again, please download the handouts that are included, and you can schedule a time to share this information with your team or your stakeholders. And we can also set up a personalized demonstration to go deep into any topics that you want to see further or that you didn't think were covered well enough. So again, thank you everyone for registering and enjoy your day.
Thanks again, everybody.